Yesterday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman made an announcement that no one expected. For the first time in 25 years of continuous human presence aboard the International Space Station, a crew is coming home early due to a medical emergency. What happened 250 miles above Earth that forced NASA to make a decision they've never had to make before? Welcome back. Wednesday afternoon, January 7th. Mission Control Houston receives a request from the International Space Station. Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui asks for an immediate private medical conference with a flight surgeon. Within minutes, NASA pulls the station's live audio feed from YouTube. The public broadcast, normally streaming 24/7, goes dark. On social media, space enthusiasts notice immediately. Something is wrong. By midnight, NASA Spaceflight, the premier independent space news forum, posts a message that sends chills through the community. This is becoming a serious situation. Possible early return of Crew 11. Thursday morning, the world learns what happened. One of the 4 astronauts aboard Crew 11, their identity still undisclosed, experienced a medical situation severe enough to cancel the first spacewalk of 2026 and potentially end their mission a month ahead of schedule. NASA Chief Medical Officer Dr. James Polk chose his words carefully during the press conference. The astronaut is stable, he emphasized. This is not an emergency evacuation, but here's what matters. The medical equipment aboard the ISS, robust as it is, isn't enough to complete a full diagnostic workup. They need to bring this person home. Let me put this in perspective. Since November 2000, when Expedition 1 arrived at the station, hundreds of astronauts have lived and worked in orbit. They've dealt with minor injuries, illness, even a blood clot discovered in 2020 that was treated successfully in space. Spacewalks have been postponed before due to spacesuit discomfort or minor health concerns. But never, not once in a quarter century, has NASA decided to evacuate a crew member for medical reasons. Until now. The crew in question launched from Kennedy Space Center on August 1, 2025. 4 people, NASA astronauts Zena Cardman, 38 years old on her first spaceflight, and Mike Finke, 58, a veteran with over a year accumulated in orbit. Joining them, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui, 55, returning for his second station mission, and Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov, 39, also on his first flight. They were scheduled to remain aboard until mid-February. Now they're coming home within days. Here's what we know. Wednesday afternoon, the medical situation arose. By evening, the decision chain had begun. Dr. Polk consulted with Administrator Isaacman, who only took office weeks ago. Together, they weighed the options. Can we diagnose this in orbit? Can we treat it? What's the risk of waiting? And crucially, what's the risk of bringing 4 people home a month early when their replacement crew isn't ready yet? Think about what that decision means. When Crew 11 undocks, the station will be left with just 3 people. 2 Russian cosmonauts, Sergei Kutsverchkov and Sergei Mikheyev, who arrived in November aboard a Soyuz spacecraft, and 1 American, NASA astronaut Chris Williams. For the first time in years, only 1 U.S. astronaut will manage the American segment of the station. Williams, by the way, is a volunteer firefighter, an emergency medical technician, and holds a PhD in astrophysics from MIT. If there's anyone you'd want handling this situation, it's him. But still, 1 person alone until Crew 12 arrives, currently scheduled for February 15th. NASA isn't saying who is affected. Medical privacy laws apply even 250 miles up. They won't confirm whether it's one of the astronauts scheduled for Thursday's spacewalk, Cardman and Finke, who were supposed to spend 6.5 hours outside installing equipment for new solar arrays. That spacewalk would have been Cardman's first and Finke's 10th, tying him with Peggy Whitson for most spacewalks by a NASA astronaut. Now it's postponed indefinitely. Social media erupted with speculation. Was it Yui who requested the medical conference? Does that mean he's the affected crew member, or was he calling on behalf of someone else? NASA won't say. Some observers noted that during Apollo 13, the world knew everything in real time. Commander Jim Lovell's famous words, "Houston, we've had a problem, we're broadcast live. Today, in 2026, we get a carefully worded press release and a brief conference." Times have changed. But here's what fascinates me about this situation. Dr. Polk mentioned something subtle during the briefing. This medical issue, he said, is not related to the operational environment. It's not an injury from a spacewalk gone wrong, not radiation exposure, not a microgravity-related problem. It's something that could have happened on Earth. The difference is, on Earth, you drive to the emergency room, you get a full workup, CT scans, MRIs, blood work, specialists. On the station, you have telemedicine, a well-stocked pharmacy, and crew members trained in emergency procedures. But you don't have a CT scanner. You can't rule things out definitively. What do you think the medical situation might be? Appendicitis? Cardiac concern? Something neurological? Write your thoughts in the comments, but remember, whoever this is, they're a real person dealing with a frightening situation far from home. The timing adds another layer of complexity. Administrator Isaacman, himself a private astronaut who commanded the Inspiration 4 mission, has been in office less than a month. This is his first major crisis decision. He spoke confidently at the press conference, praising the swift coordination across the agency, but you could hear it in his voice. This matters. This is why we prepare for emergencies we hope never happen. Here's what happens next. Within the next 48 hours, NASA will announce the undocking schedule. The Crew Dragon Endeavour spacecraft, which brought Crew 11 to orbit, will separate from the station. 8 hours later, it splashes down in the Atlantic or Gulf of Mexico. SpaceX recovery teams will be waiting. The affected astronaut will be transported immediately to medical facilities. And then finally, we might learn what happened. Meanwhile, 3 people remain aboard the station. Williams and the 2 cosmonauts will maintain operations, keep experiments running, ensure systems stay functional. It's doable, NASA insists. The station has operated with 3-person crews before, but it's not ideal, especially with 2 spacewalks originally scheduled for January now in limbo. This situation reminds us of something we sometimes forget. Space is still hard. Despite decades of experience, despite all our technology and preparation, we're still human beings operating in an environment we weren't designed for. The ISS has been called the most expensive object ever built, a triumph of international cooperation, a laboratory that's advanced science in countless ways. But at its core, it's a metal can orbiting at 17,500 miles per hour, keeping 7 people alive in the vacuum of space. And sometimes, just sometimes, things go wrong. Thank you for watching. If you remember the early days of the station, if you watched Expedition 1 arrive in November 2000, share your memories in the comments. This is history unfolding. Until next time.